Mauritius, December 23rd, 1809. It's just after midnight, 2 days after the Creole has arrived here in St. Pierre. They wanted to arrive here in the bigger port of Mauritius. What is that called? Mahabor. But the British steered them down south, and unfortunately for the French, their ships are widely scattered across 4 different ports. Now, there are about 6 or 7 quality ports. The British are having a hard time bottling up those 6 or 7 ports, depending on how you count, with just 4 ships. Tired of just patrolling the waters, they are taking the fight to the French. They're landing a force of 600 troops here in St. Pierre. For you historical-minded guys, the great success that the British had was up here in Port Louis when they attempted to cut out the Caroline. But because our patrols worked a little different, because the odds, just little things changed, the butterfly effect, the French wind up here with the Creole. And this is where the British have decided to take a slightly more measured approach. They're going to try to cut out the Creole, damage the shipping, damage the defenses here, get in, get out, and see what happens. Now, the main forces of the French defenders are in Saint-Denis, which is a longer hike. That may be part of the reason for the commander's choice to choose St. Pierre. Also, because they just missed the Creole. Also, maybe those plans were in place long before the Creole had arrived there, and now the British are thinking, hey, this is like double plus ultra, right? We got the advantage. Maybe we even do a cutting out. Now, I got to warn you, today is going to be the landing. I just want to know how successful the British are at getting their troops ashore. And to figure that out, we're going to use a little game called Doom Squad, a solo wargame set of rules about special forces. From Alternative Armies, written by Stephen Daines, we want to know if our pioneers can get into the enemy pickets and guard areas and silence the guards so the rest of the force can make their landing on the beach unopposed. And that beach looks a little something like this. At least, this is what it looks like today. This won't come into factor in today's battle, but I did want to show you a zoom in on what that port looks like. Pretty safe assumption the harbor walls are pretty close to what you see here. Different kind of harbor, not quite so many pleasure yachts, probably a few more berths for the larger vessels. And of course, this will be the ultimate objective for the raid by the British. But before they can get there, they have to land on this beach here. And we talked about this last week, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But this will dictate how our terrain looks today. The yellow star is the strong point that the French have a little cabin, maybe a little farmhouse that they've commandeered to keep an eye on this stretch of beach. They're not stupid. They know the British are likely to come. They can't patrol the entire coastline, but they can at least control portions of it. And this being the most likely position would be a nice place to put, just stick a squad or 2 of guys out here, have them patrol the area of the farms. Now, the area north of the highway, that's where the farms are. This area to the south of the superhighway you see there, multiple lanes, that area is where it is largely undeveloped. Maybe there's a little bit of sheep grazing. I don't know. It doesn't matter. We're just trying to build a little war game scenario. So the key factors here are that we got this lovely black sand beach, a lot of wasted space. So of course, I'm going to tilt things. Our table, what looks to be the southern edge, the bottom of your screen will be running kind of northwest, southeast. I'm just going to call it the south end of the table to keep things simple. There's a gulch on the right-hand side with a nice bluff running along the beach. And then there's a hill over to the far left. And that little dashed white line to the left of where the star is, that's a ditch. So those are the key things that we want to make sure we get onto the table. And this is what the terrain looks like on my table. You'll notice 3 red dots. Those are spawn points when additional Frenchmen come onto the table. The beach is down here, and here's that ditch we talked about, the hill. And then it doesn't quite look like a gulch, but here's our bluffs. And as you can see, there's a broad open spot right through here that's going to be a little tough to get across. This is a 6-inch ruler, which of course translates to 15 centimeters. And on movement, pretty sure the guys move about 8 centimeters per turn. So that's 2 full turns of getting across the open ground. Now they may be able to sweep around this way, take advantage of this ditch. It's a dry gulch. Don't let the blue fool you. This time of year, there's nothing flowing there. When you're in it, you can't be seen from outside of it. So we may decide to send them up this way, hop over the fence, and then assault the farmhouse from this direction. Alternatively, it's a much shorter case. If we deploy our troops down here, outside of the gulch, they could come up the gulch, and that's the shortest route. We'll discuss why the gulch might not be the optimal choice in a minute. First, let's take a look at our raiders, the Doom Squad, the chosen men, if you will. Her Majesty's forces have selected this to be the leader. He has a sword and a pistol. He has a scout with him. And you're probably wondering, hey, what's with the tricorns? I thought this was Napoleonic. Yeah, I use my redcoats for a pretty broad swath, almost 75 years of history. And I just like the way the tricorns look. And it's going to help us distinguish between the abilities. The guy crouching down here, he is a scout. He gets a free check to spot sentries when this group has him on point. They also move a little bit faster. Formations matter. Because they have a leader, if he's on point, he can change the formation that they're moving in as a free action. Change formation, move. If he's not on point, it takes a single action to change formation. And if you don't have a leader, like these two groups of figures over here, it takes a full turn just to change formation. These two guys with the stovepipe hat and the green plumes are regular troopers, as are these two guys with the yellow plumes. Now, this squad has two things. Now, these two guys come from the artillery pack. They're actually supposed to be servicing a cannon. But today, this is going to be my close assault specialist with a great big honking club. And this guy with the little powder charge, he is a grenado. He's got grenades. The whole squad has grenades. They have a range of 6 centimeters. And because he's in the troop, they get a +1 to hit with those. These, of course, are snipers. Now, snipers, in addition to having the +1 to fire, I don't think it's going to come into play too much because it's nighttime. So the distance doesn't matter. But when this squad is fired at during the enemy's turn, they get to return fire first. So when the random chance says, oh, they're fired on, no. They fire first, then the enemy will fire at them. Notice there's 3 groups. That's why we have those 1, 2, and 3 spawn points, 1 for each of the groups. Now I need to put down some blind markers. I got to drop 10 little chips. Normally, I would drop 10, 1 for each of my guys. But remember, we're playing a campaign. There are other considerations at play besides the fairness and difficulty that is written into a game like Doom Squad. In this case, we're going to tweak it a little bit to reflect the fact that it's almost Christmas, that it's wintertime. The French are living high on the hog. They have been able to just run circles around the British. They're a little bit cocky, and we have chosen almost the perfect night to launch this raid. So I'm only going to drop 8 of those to start. Remember, in this game, they have a tendency to multiply. And because of those spawn points, we may get a lot more activity out here on this far outskirts of town on a dark, moonless night than historically was likely. However, as I said, it's a dark moonless night. That's why they chose this night of all nights. I could probably go back and check the records, but I didn't. Look, I grabbed some maps from Google Earth. What more do you want? Hey, long story short, sight lines are going to be very much reduced. Normally, in a daytime encounter, you can see the defender chips. You can scout and see who's there out to a distance of 24 centimeters. Today, because it's a dark night, we're limited to 16. You can only observe, and then the markers can only see you out to, the enemy figures can fire at a target that is not yet fired out to a distance of 8 centimeters. 4 centimeters if you're in cover. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's go ahead and drop those markers down. I'll show you how that works, and then we can start the game proper. The game wants me to spread the potential encounters evenly across the battlefield. I've basically done that. Measured 8 inches in and around, put them in a nice little grid. Now, the round markers are not it. These stacks of chips actually have potential encounters. I'm going to deal them out. But first, I want to know, are any of these going to get tweaked at all? I'm going to let the dice decide whether there's a better placement for these. In other words, are these guys really in the safety and the comfort of the little farmhouse yard, or are they over here watching the gulch? On a 1, 2, or 3, they're watching the gulch. They're not. They're happy where they're at. What about this guy? Is he up on the bluffs? Now, if we move him up on the bluffs, that means we can't deploy our British down over here. 6, he's not. So he's right there. So this is still a viable deployment point. Are they taking shelter from the sea wind and the shelter of the rocks, or are they up here in the open a little bit more? 1, 2, or 3? Yeah, they're actually up here in the open, so that's going to make things complicated. Are these guys up watching the road? On a 1, 2, or 3 they are? They're not? What about these guys? Are they up watching the road? On a 3 they are. So I'm going to slide them up here. Now that opens up a path through here. Do these guys come up into the open on a 1, 2, or a 3? They do not. They're standing here watching the gulch. Oh, that's going to be a problem. I guess we may be able to come up through here, but we're going to have to deal with a couple of these. What about him? Is he watching the stream too? No, he's not. And what about him? Is he going to move? Where would we move him to? We are going to put him up on top of this hill on a 1, 2, or a 3. Nope. Okay, so a little bit of a spread here. Looks like our sentries have tightened up. They want to hear the music and the song and the laughing and the joking in the farmhouse. That's fine. So the next thing we do is grab these tiles, and we're just going to deploy them 1, 2, 3. And you'll have to trust me here. Look, I'll cut the deck here so it doesn't look too much like I've pre-plotted or pre-planned any of these out. We'll pull this stack. We'll kind of go halvesies and drop that one right there. And then I have one more. We'll take this guy from... I don't know, let's cut this one a couple of times and just pick one at random. How about him? There we go. Let me clean that up. And our boys are going to come make their landing in this little landing craft. And I'll drop this down wherever they finally decide to come ashore. We've hauled our boat up under the cover of the bluffs. This is where formations matter. Everybody on the board is going to move a double move. The leader here, because his formation has a scout in it, they can move 5 centimeters per move. And because we're doing a double move and we're staying far enough away from all of the enemy markers, we are just going to bring them up something like that. The column over here is a little bit different. If they get fired on, so first of all, because they're in column, they get +2 per move. They're going to be able to leg it a total of 12 centimeters. The bluffs and the cover here mean they're going to be just fine. So we'll bring them up, and then we're going to bring these snipers up right behind them. They could probably move a little further than that, but I'm comfortable. If you're not sure where fire is coming from, you have other options. You can go an extended line, which makes it harder for the enemy to shoot at you. You can actually form a diamond formation, which allows you, basically, your guys can fire in all 4 directions, but you move a little slower. There's also, there's a couple of others, but I'm not going to worry about it. There's a flying wedge. You can go like this, which again allows you to move fairly rapidly, but it gives you some benefits and penalties. I'm not going to do any of those. I'm just going to keep these guys like so. You can attempt to spot an enemy marker within 16 centimeters. That is this far. And you can see, well, let me just adjust the camera here. That marker is a little too far away. Now, it does take an action. These guys can't check because they used all of their actions to move. The sniper, the scout down here, he does have a free spot action because he's a scout. Unfortunately, he is just a little bit too far away to give this a spot check. Then we check to see if we got too close to any of these markers. It's a dark night. If we can get to within 8 centimeters of the marker and determine what it is, well, let me clarify. We can make a spot check out to 24 centimeters. It looks a little something like this, except it's a dark and stormy night, which means we can only see 16 centimeters. Remember, now our leader has a telescope, so he has a bonus on that check, but we're outside of the range for him. Also, it takes an action, unless you have a scout. His special ability is he can try to check. As you can see, 16 centimeters, he's too far away. These guys don't get the free check. They used both of their actions to move, so we're not going to be able to do any scouting. We're just going to have to move again. The nice thing about this game is you can kind of take your time and pick your moment before all hell breaks loose. These won't trigger until I close to within 8 or 4 centimeters behind cover. By the way, this spawn point, I did take an enemy unit, and I'm going to show you this right off the bat. I dropped an enemy unit. These guys are inside the farmhouse. If you spawn camp close enough to this point, you don't have to worry about enemies coming out of there. The first time somebody spawns, that's the rest of the guards inside the house, we have to deal with them. And then we have to maintain our perimeter. We have to make sure we don't let any bad guys into this walled area for a total of 3 turns. So the game does have a nice little ratcheting up of the tension before everything just crashes loose. In this case, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to make a scouting check here. I've moved these guys. I'm probably going to move them one more time, change formation, and then I'm going to see what's going on here. I have the advantage that I can stop just outside of 8 centimeters and sneak a little peek at this guy. Although I need to check to see if my target observation is impacted by the fact that there's a wall there. There's not a wall here, so I can try to check and see what this is right now. You will notice I changed formation. I've got the leader. I can do that for free. I only had to move him 5 centimeters, so we're in cover behind the rocks here. To do a spot check, you roll a d6. On a 1, you're spotted by these guys. However, I have a +1, so that's not going to happen. On a 2 through 5, I reveal what this is, and on a 6, for me, because I'm using a scout, that's a 5 or a 6, I get to see what that one is too. Thank goodness for the scout. I get to reveal this one, and it is incoming fire. So when that's revealed, somebody's going to get shot at. Doesn't mean there's enemy there. It just means that somebody is shooting at that position. And that's all I can do for this turn. I need to move him somewhere that he can spot what's going on here, but we're in the wide open. I don't think I want to do that. I think I'm just going to settle down, and we'll wait, and we'll see what happens. Although, do recall that ranges are all very low because it's a dark night as well. So on the next turn, we're going to move these guys. Now it takes 2 full actions to change formation. So I'm going to change formation. These guys are going to form a line like this, and that's all they can do. Likewise, these guys are going to form line here in cover, and they're just going to hang tight. And then I can make another spot check right here, and on a 5 or a 6, okay, I got a 3, so I still know what that is. I don't think anybody else is close enough for him to spot. Here's 16 centimeters. No, we're just too far away. Maybe the thing to do with these guys, now they're in diamond formation so they can move, but I may want to move them over here so we can spot this target right there. Or maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we just sit tight. You have to be within 8 to spot a marker in cover. So that turn ends. Nobody's far enough away. Again, this guy, maybe he's in cover, so maybe he can make a spot check. Oh, yeah, no, he's 9 centimeters away. But we already know what that is, so I'm not too worried about it. The only other thing we can do here is go through a couple of quick turns. These guys are in line. They're all facing the house, and they're going to move a total of 8 centimeters now. And we're going to keep them just outside of the spot distance. We're going to move them up to here, and we're going to try to see what's going down with this guy. They don't have a scout. So turn ends, nothing doing. We're 8 centimeters away, but we're in cover, so they can't see us. We get to make a spot check. On a 1, this gets flipped over and revealed. On a 6, this gets flipped over, and the next nearest one gets flipped over, which in this case is... So we're about 7 inches away there. Are we a little further away? Nope, 6. We already know what the next nearest one is. So what do we got? No threat. Okay. Good news. So we're going to get fired at from here. And we need to get these guys into position. So what we can do is, on our very next turn, we're going to bring these guys up, and they can move a total of 8 centimeters. He is 8 centimeters from the wall. So we'll bring him up to here. We're plenty far enough away. So I think the next thing to do is take our time, and we'll wheel these guys around here, and we'll get them into position to fire. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do, actually. We're going to bring these guys to here. We're going to get them close enough that we don't have to worry about a spawn point here. In other words, they're guarding this entry point. We're spawn camping. They can't get through. Since this is incoming fire, and we know that this is 8 centimeters away, I'm going to form line, and I'm going to spend 2 turns getting these guys. I got to stay 8 centimeters away. So I'm actually going to bring these guys up to here, and we're going to be able to assault this farmhouse without any interference, but I got to stay right there. That's probably pretty good. Now remember, this objective marker is not on the table yet. It's just indicating that there's bad guys in the house. Can we get through without triggering this one is the other question. Yeah, we can. We're going to be able to move our boys around through here. They're going to have to sneak through. How much room is between these? 23, so 8 and minus 16. We got 7 full centimeters, so we're going to sneak them up here. And when we get here into cover, our scout's going to try to see what this is. With a 2, it is an enemy unit. So we have to worry about these enemies as well. The cascading failure portion of today's activities begins with our boys all set to kick in the front door. Now, I know this is a spawn point. I've got guys close enough, within 6 centimeters, that no one will spawn here even after the shooting occurs. My 2 snipers are going to be preoccupied with watching the road that approaches St. Pierre. Anybody comes up this way, they'll stop them. Maybe with a little lead greeting. What really happens here, so again, these guys have moved up to here. They are beyond 4 centimeters from this marker. So on our turn, they're going to move up to here and hold 1 action to see what happens with this enemy unit. Now, they know there's an enemy unit. Maybe they went out for a smoke break. I don't know what it is. Because it is an enemy unit, we're going to roll a d6 to find out how many troops are in this batch. We're also going to roll to find out how many troops are inside the farmhouse. So first, how many Frenchmen in the enemy unit? Just a single guy. Oh boy. Now, how many are in the farmhouse? 2. The dice are coming up all things British. That's going to make this really easy. So now we spawn those guys. Sacre bleu, the French sentries cry out. Now I've pulled the farmhouse fight over here. It's really inside the farmhouse, but because of the camera angle, it's just a little easier if we can see over there. These guys have grenades. We're going to fire those here in a moment. A couple of things I should point out. Our handpicked men, elite troopers, when they fire, they're hitting on a 4 or better. The sentries are only going to be hitting on a 5 or better. But when they are revealed, I have to roll a d6 because we test for the reaction. And on a 1, I drop another token down. I'll grab one from the bag, drop it down. On a 3, the marker is revealed. If enemy troops are there, then we test for their reaction. So we roll another d6, and on a result of a 5, there are, well, so we know how many there are, figures in the unit fire. Okay, that's it. So this guy's going to open fire. But remember, we used our move to get into position. We held our fire for just such an eventuality. The muskets that these guys have can fire out to a range of 12. Now, again, because it's dark, they can only fire out to a range of 8 centimeters. Okay, but out to 6 centimeters, half of their normal range, they are at +1. And it's not clear to me whether that's halved at night, so I'm going to give it to them. 6 centimeters, we've got 3 guys that are going to be hitting on 3s. That's the normal 4, but +1. And I've got 1 guy, the leader, whose pistol only hits on a 4. So here's the pistol, is a miss. And then the 3 muskets, we're going to get 2 hits out of that. Then we have to roll to see what the results of those hits are. When you score a 7 or better, and remember, we had 2 hits that we rolled 6s, +1 for the short range. These are kill hits. If you hit with a result of, if you just hit up through 6, then it's called a suppression hit. Because we have 2 kill hits, we have to check on a separate chart. So there's a couple of different variables. Is the target in the open? Is he in soft cover or hard cover? Well, he's in the open compared to our guys. They were able to sneak up to this wall. And because this is a kill hit, we are going to roll 2d6. And on a 5 or better... Oh, no, this is the defensive roll. Sorry, you got to think about it right. It's from the perspective of this guy. He is going to be killed on anything but a 5 or better. So I got a 6 and a 2, so this unit is eliminated in a volley of fire. The shooting has now begun in earnest, and the situation changes, but I do have one more fight. We're going to throw 4 grenades into the farmhouse. Now, the grenades work like, they're just like guns, except for a couple of things. 1, they have a range of 6 centimeters. 3 centimeters is half distance because we're right at the doors and windows. We're going to give ourselves the +1 for that. Then, because we're throwing grenades inside of a house, we get an additional +1, meaning normally hitting on 4s, now we're hitting on anything but a 1. And I've got 4 guys with grenades, and we are going to roll a 1, 2, 4, and a 4. In this case, we have, with the total of +2, we have 3 suppression hits, which are not affected by cover inside the building. When you throw grenades, any hits automatically count as, what says here, if grenades have been purchased, let me find it. Grenades are effective when thrown into buildings or trenches. Targets do not get a defense save. They're thrown through the windows. These 2 guys are just straight up eliminated. So we have emptied the farmhouse. That was really easy, but now things get a little harder. It's still the enemy's turn, but the enemy has reinforcements on the way. I'm going to bring these guys up into the farmhouse. Remember, they're standing right at the door. And this is, we're going to treat the whole farmhouse as the area where the attack occurred. And that's going to be important because this farmhouse, if you take a look at it, is 5 centimeters across by 6 centimeters wide. According to the rules as written, any target marker within 24 centimeters of a figure that makes an attack. That means this guy. It means this guy over here. And again, we're using the entire house. So 24 centimeters is that far away. And then this guy over here, there's 24 centimeters. No. Well, so this figure didn't get a shot off. What's the judgment call? Well, the rules are silent as to whether at night this distance is halved. I'm not going to have that distance because at night the flash of the shots and the sounds will echo even further because it is quiet. So I'm going to check for both this and this target marker. At the end of the French turn, there's a chance that this spawn point generates more people. That's not going to be the case here because we've got guys within 6 centimeters of the spawn point. Likewise over here. There's another spawn point over there, but you only test if action is occurring, if gunshots are fired off within 24 centimeters of those spawn points. However, you do need to check for the target markers that occur within 24 centimeters. They're positioned within 24 centimeters. Obviously, there's your 24 centimeters. From this one, 24 centimeters reaches to right there. And since this guy didn't get his shot off, we're going to say it's too far away. This one is clearly within 24 centimeters, so I have 2 to check for. And all you do is roll a d6. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 6, did I get that right? The marker, I got that wrong. On a 1, the marker is revealed, and you put a new marker down next to it. On a 6, the marker is not revealed, and on a 2 through 5, you flip it over, and you spawn whoever's there. So I'm going to roll a white die for up here and a black die for down there, and I get a 1 and a 2, so a 1 means this marker is revealed, and it is revealed to be a civilian crowd. This marker is revealed by itself. It is incoming fire, and I need to grab 1 more marker at random, and we have another enemy unit. So you thought that this was going to be a walk in the park. Oh, Mr. Wargaming set it up to be nice and easy peasy to take care of this house. Not the case. I now have a number of different things I have to deal with. The incoming fire is the easy one to deal with. Let's start there. D6 shots are fired at the nearest enemy unit. That's obviously going to be these guys, not the snipers. So we roll for D6. 4 shots are fired, and they will be hits on a 5 or better. So I got a total of 2 hits on a 5 and a 6. We can put this back in the bag. It's not going to happen again. So I have to deal with the 2 hits here. There's no word about whether the hardcover applies or not. I'm not sure where they're coming from. At this point, we're a little vague on where it doesn't really matter. Look, somebody out there is shooting at these guys. The hardcover now affects our defensive save. Because the marker was too far away, I'm going to go ahead and say these must be suppression hits. I can avoid the effects of the suppression by rolling a 1, 2, or a 3 on my defensive save. So I am going to receive 1 suppression marker on this unit right here. And we'll drop a yellow chip. So we got 1 suppressed figure over there, and then we have to roll 2d6 to find out how many guys are in this enemy unit and how many guys are in the civilian crowd. So for the unit, we're going to have 4 enemy soldiers, and the civilian crowd will be 6 civilians. Now, fortunately, I have civilians that I can drop down. I'm going to use my farmers as the 6 civilians and the French soldiers in the blue uniforms as the enemy unit. To remove the suppression hit, we have to take an action. That's unfortunate. It means that our leader group will not be able to aim and fire. They're just gonna have to fire. Except that the guys they're firing at are out of range, aren't they? They're 16 centimeters away. So we're gonna hold that second action. The muskets only have a range of 12 centimeters. And remember, it's dark out, so of course we can only see up to 8 centimeters. But the same rule holds for the French guys. This unit is going to do the same thing. They fired into the building, then they rushed on the last turn. So on this turn, they use their movement to get into hard cover, and then they stop and wait for these guys to get close. That's all we can do. We've held fire for both of these 2 units. Our snipers are just, we're just going to use those 2 figures to hold down that area. Probably won't even mention them unless it becomes a big deal. This is the first turn in which we have held the farmhouse. Turn number 1, assuming these guys don't charge and take us. After 3 turns, we win, and that's because there are more boats landing on the beach even as we speak. And after that 3rd turn, on that 4th turn, there's just going to be mobs of guys. 20 guys to a boat. There's going to be 60 guys, just going to overwhelm any of the local defenders. But for now, we have to figure out what the French are going to do. And to do that, we roll for a reaction. We'll check for the soldiers first. We roll a d6. And there's a lovely little chart here. On a 3, 2 to 5 figures in the unit fire. 1 suppressed figure is rallied. If the unit is out of range, it will advance 1 move and can fire if it moves into range. So 1 move will carry them 4 centimeters. And you go down the list. First thing that happens is if they can fire, they fire. Then if they're suppressed, they take off. Then they advance. If they withdraw, it will halt, and cavalry will charge. Well, that's not the case. So these guys are just going to advance 4 centimeters in line like that. And then we roll for these farmers over here. And on a result of a 6, the result is they will advance and fire if it has no suppressed figures. That's it. If it withdrew, if it had suppressed but didn't withdraw. So these guys are just going to go ahead and advance 4 centimeters as well. And that'll bring them up somewhere right about here. We'll put 3 guys in the front. The civilians follow a slightly different rule. And I probably should have read this before we got started. When you drop them down, it says that next turn, the player rolls a d6. A score of 1 or 2 means shots are fired from the civilians. Roll 1 or 2 d6s to hit the nearest team. Roll 1 or 2 d6s. How do I know whether it's 1 or 2? Look, I got 6 guys there. So first of all, on a 1 or a 2, they're going to fire. All right, they don't. And I think the idea here is they're not trained soldiers. They're like shocked and surprised, and they're going to fire at the farmhouse or just whatever shadows are there. But with a 6, nothing happens, and so it's just that simple advance. And that's going to be the end of the turn, except, because we didn't have any other gunfire. So if these guys had opened fire, and this is where the cascading failure really kicks in, these guys are now within 24 centimeters of this target marker. They haven't fired yet, but if they advance 1 more time, any firing that happens across this line here will have to check for that marker, and possibly even for this one. No, the next furthest marker over there is just not going to be checked for. So I think we'll pull those. Now let's leave them on. You never know. The ebb and flow of the battle is very chaotic. So we can go on to our turn. And we reload. We brace ourselves for impact. We're still at less than 8 centimeters. Ooh, no, maybe we're not. With this advance here, we are at 8 centimeters to the civilians. So I'm going to fire. I'm going to aim at the civilians with all 4 of these guys. They all have muskets. I'm going to take 4 shots, hitting on 4s. With the aiming, I'm going to be hitting on 3s. I'm going to get a total of 1 kill shot. Oh, wait a minute. I really need to treat this as bonuses. And then this becomes a 5. So I have 1 kill shot and 2 suppression on the farmers. So we'll roll to see what happens. They are in the open. And with a result of a 5 on the kill shot, you get a result of, this is their defensive roll. Because they're in the open, the kill shot, they successfully save on a 5 up. The suppression in the open, you save on a 6 up. So they're going to earn 2 suppression markers. And we hold fire here. We don't have any suppression markers. So we roll to see what happens. What do the civilians do? We'll roll for them first this time. On a result of a 1, 1 figure fires an aimed shot. 1 to 6 figures that are suppressed. 1 to 6 figures suppressed. Figure are rallied. Again, copy it in a little bit janky here. So I'm going to roll a d6 to find out how many suppression markers are removed. I get a 5, and so all they're going to do this time is remove their suppression. They take a step back. The guys in the back say, "Hey, Charlie, get your act together. What about these guys?" On a result of a 5, we run down a little checklist. 2 to 5 figures fire. They're outside of the firing range still. 1 suppressed figures rally. No. If the unit is out of range, it will advance 1 move and can fire if it is within range. So that 4 centimeters will bring them to here, and they will fire. Now, I can't remember if hold fire will allow them to take their shots now or not. The rules say if a new enemy appears, they appear out of the gloom at long range. We don't get any bonuses. I don't think the pistol can fire, though. The pistol, are we within 6 centimeters? No, we are not. So we're only going to get to fire 3 shots at this group. And because we held fire, we're not going to get the bonus. It's just going to be straight die rolls for our guys. I'm going to get a 4, 4, and a 2. I hit on 4s, which means I've got 2 suppressing hits. And those 2 suppressing hits, one of them will be eliminated, but the other one will drop down. So because he is suppressed, they're only going to be able to return fire with 3 shots. They're going to get a 1, 1, and a 5, which means they hit me 1 time with a suppression shot. And I am going to save that with because I'm in hard cover, I save on a 4 better, so nothing happens. Then we have to check. So we did these guys. Now they did open fire, so I have to check and see what happens with this unit over here. I roll a d6 to find out, and on a result of a 6, nothing happens. How about that? We really needed that. Marker is not revealed. If they stand and continue to fire at me, then there's a chance next turn that it will be revealed. And remember, on a 1, we actually revealed 2 markers in that area. So we fired, they were unsuppressed. Our turn is over. Their turn is over. Now it's our turn, and this time we can go ahead. And these guys are going to fire. I got 3 shots, but now I get the aimed shot. So I'm going to be at +1 on each of these dice. I get a hit. I get 2 suppressing hits and 1 kill hit. Remember, this becomes a 2. Oh, you know what? I'm at +1. This becomes these are both misses, aren't they? Okay. Well, I got 1 kill shot anyway. These guys are going to try their save roll, and with a result of a 3, one of them is going to die. Now, what happens? So here's the thing. If you have more suppression markers than you do unsuppressed figures, then they have to fall back. That's just a given. It's not the case yet. Okay? I have another group over here that can open fire at that group. Are they within range? Are they within range now? They are. At an 8, they're within range. So I'm going to open fire with my 4 muskets at the farmers. And these are going to be aimed shots. I get a total of a 6, and then I get 2 more hits. So that is going to be 3 suppressing hits. Blam, blam, blam. And they only save from suppression in the case of a result of a 6. So 3 suppression markers are going to get dropped down on the farmers. And I'm going to need a couple of more chips over here. And this is working to my favor. We're up to the second turn now. Well, kind of. I need to check for the actions of these guys. The farmers we're just going to roll 2d6. That's all the attacks they get every time when they get their attacks. But of course, we have to see what their reaction is. And with the result of a 4, 2 to 5 figures fire. One suppressed figure is rallied, but cannot fire. Okay. So let's do this, that being the case. We've got 2 suppressed figures, and we've got 4 unsuppressed figures. So let's take 2 shots at these guys over here with our farmers. Now, they're only hitting on 5s. 2 misses. All right. Now we check to see what these guys do. We roll a d6, and on a result of a 5, 2 to 5 figures fire. 1 suppressed figure is rallied, but cannot fire. So that means 2 figures altogether will fire. So he becomes rallied, and the other 2 figures are going to open fire at us. They are going to roll a 2 and a 4, which are both misses. It says if the unit is out of range, it will advance. It's not going to do that. So we got involved into a shooting match here, and we had, was that 1 hit on that? 1 suppression hit? Which I can't remember now. I should probably check the tape. 2 shots, we got a 4. No, it was both misses because these guys hit on 5s. So that's the end of their turn. Now we have 1 more turn to get through. And we're going to wind up doing the exact same thing. We're taking 4 shots, aimed shots with these guys. And, oh no, before we get to that, I got to check and see if this other target marker comes alive. And with another 6, it does not. Oh, we're having some seriously good luck here today. I love it. That's going to be a kill shot. These 3 are going to be suppression shots. So let's see if the kill shot does what it needs to do. Well, does he save on the kill shot? With the result of a 2, he's in the open. He only saves on a 5 or better, so he is dead. And then I have 3 suppression shots. Blam, blam, blam. I get a 1, 2, and a 6. They save one of them, but the other 2 become suppressed. If they had failed all 3 of these, I drop 1 suppression marker here, 1 suppression marker here. I have 1 suppression marker left over. That turns one of these into a kill shot. I'm not too worried about it because this is going to end the game for us. On their turn, they're going to withdraw. You automatically withdraw a move when that happens. They say, this is not going our way, which makes sense. Probably not going to go your way when you are engaged in a firefight with guys that are behind hard cover. When they fall back, they lose a figure, and the remaining figures stay suppressed. So a couple of wounded guys have fallen here, and this guy says, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do here. That means the only enemy group that we have is this civilian group, and we'll check for them, and on a result of a 1 figure fires an aim shot. 1 to 6 suppressed figures are rallied. Okay, so 4 figures are going to rally. We're going to fire 1 aimed shot at this group here. With a 2, that becomes a 3, so that is still going to be a miss. If the unit is out of range, which they're not, and cavalry is not. So that's the end of the 3rd turn, and we have now won this scenario, running away with it. No casualties. Nobody even suppressed at this point. Nobody is even wounded. And it's an interesting game because having that no contact here made all the difference in the world. Had there been an enemy unit or a group of civilians or, I gotta find out what was over here. Gathering threat. So gathering threat means you drop 2 tokens down, but they both stay uncovered. So even if we had that one of those 6s came up, I would then select 2 of these and drop them down. And then on each subsequent round of gunfire, in fact, we could probably roll right now. Well, look, oh, we got a 3, so it's revealed. Well, I have 2 now. And on the next turn, I would have to check for both of these. And if one of these is gathering threat, that could mean that you have 3 here that you're checking for. And of course, no threat in enemy artillery. There's a cannon over here. Holy cow. I wonder what they were aiming at. Interesting. Well, I'm glad we didn't draw that because I don't know how I would have dealt with it. Would have been a little bit awkward. In the meantime, what does this mean for our campaign? Well, it means that we're going to have complete surprise when the British launch their raid on the port of St. Pierre. Probably not too surprising. If this had gone completely terribly, they might have been marching into the jaws of a trap. But we're honoring this as kind of a historical result. They slipped in at the dead of night. They probably landed around midnight. They're going to take an hour or two, maybe take a nap, get some rest. They're probably excited. They're only a mile and a half. What is that? Half an hour, 45-minute hike. They'll intercept any traffic coming down the road. They're going to attack at dawn, and they're going to achieve complete surprise on the defenses. What is that going to look like? I have no idea. But we'll find out in a future episode of the Mauritius campaign. It's Christmas Eve. They're going to be attacking the morning of Christmas Eve, did I say? Let's see, they landed on the 23rd. No, this is the 23rd. They're going to be attacking the morning of December 23rd. So unfortunately for those retailers, there's not going to be a whole lot of last-minute Christmas shopping being done in the port of St. Pierre. Well, maybe that's not true. There's going to be a lot of shopping, at least probably on the part of the British. It's just not a whole lot of paying for the goods that they have. They're going to be engaged in a mostly peaceful riot, as they say on the telly. Really glad to get to use this kind of period piece farmhouse. Here's what it looks like in the front, by the way. That's where they attacked. So their engineer probably bashed in the window and they dropped some grenades in. Vibe check! Y'all know the meme. Hey, I'm just vamping at this point. It's been a long episode. Looking forward to the next one. Might take a week off. We got a lot of random stuff to catch up on, and having 2 campaigns running at the same time between Mauritius and Wolflands, it's a bit much. It means everything else is getting short shrift, and I like giving everything as much shrift as I can. So, if we take a couple of weeks to get to the attack on Saint Pierre, forgive me. In the meantime, I'm praying for you.